Welcome to our channel. And today we are uncovering a silent change that can begin after 60, hide in plain sight, and predict far more about your future than most people ever imagine. It is not just about looking weaker, it is about losing the muscle reserve that keeps you steady, mobile, and alive. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand the signs, the science, and what to do now. Most people believe the biggest danger after 60 is something dramatic. A heart attack, a stroke, a frightening scan, a bad diagnosis that arrives all at once. But here is the shocking part. One of the strongest clues about how long and how well you may live can begin quietly, almost invisibly, in your legs. It starts with small things most people brush off. Stairs feel a little harder. Rising from a sofa takes more effort. Carrying groceries feels heavier than it used to. And because these changes are gradual, many people assume this is just normal aging. The truth is, sometimes it is not normal aging at all. Sometimes it is the first visible sign that your body is losing one of its most important survival tissues. I am talking about muscle loss, but not in the way most people think about it. This is not about looking toned in the mirror or fitting into old clothes. This is about losing the living machinery that helps you stand up, stabilize your joints, handle blood sugar, recover from illness, and catch yourself before a fall becomes a fracture. And wait for it, because the biggest surprise is still ahead. Medicine calls this sarcopenia, age-related muscle decline. But here is what makes that term so important. Experts no longer define the problem simply as having less muscle. They now focus heavily on low strength and poor physical performance, because a muscle that exists but no longer works well is a much bigger problem than most people realize. In other words, this is not just about muscle size, it is about usable muscle. Think about that for a moment. Two people can weigh the same, look similar in clothes, and have completely different futures because one still has strength, power, and movement reserve, while the other is quietly losing them. You will not always see that difference on a scale. You will see it when one person climbs stairs with confidence and the other pulls hard on the railing. Remember when I mentioned invisible changes? This is exactly what I meant. And here is where the story gets more serious after 60. Muscle is not just there to help you lift things. Skeletal muscle is one of your largest metabolic organs. It helps absorb blood sugar after meals, supports insulin sensitivity, stores amino acids for repair, and even releases helpful signaling molecules during movement that influence inflammation and resilience throughout the body. So when muscle declines, the body does not only become weaker, it becomes less flexible, less stable, and less capable of bouncing back. That is why this conversation is really about survival biology. A body with less muscle reserve is often a body that handles stress less effectively, recovers more slowly, and becomes more vulnerable to the kind of setbacks that older adults fear most. Now let me tell you about a pattern I see again and again. A woman in her late 60s notices she needs both arms to get out of a low chair. A man in his early 70s says he still walks every day, but admits his legs feel less reliable when he steps off a curb. Neither one thinks of it as a warning sign. They think it is just inconvenience. But here is the truth. Inconvenience is often how decline introduces itself. And that is why muscle loss is so deceptive. It does not usually arrive with sirens. It arrives with hesitation. You pause before standing. You avoid carrying heavy bags. You take the elevator instead of the stairs. You move a little less to stay comfortable, not realizing that every time you do, you are sending your body a dangerous message. This muscle is no longer needed. But here is the shocking part most people never hear. Aging muscle does not simply shrink. It also becomes less responsive. Scientists call this anabolic resistance, which means the muscle does not react to protein and exercise as efficiently as it did when you were younger. In plain English, the signal to repair and rebuild becomes harder to hear. On top of that, many older adults develop chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging. This is not the kind of inflammation that helps a cut heal. This is the slow, persistent kind that acts like background static, interfering with recovery and repair. The muscle's power plants, the mitochondria, become less efficient. Fast twitch fibers, the ones that help you react quickly and generate power, start to fade. Now connect those dots. Less responsive muscle means weaker rebuilding. Weaker rebuilding means less strength. Less strength often leads to less movement. Less movement worsens blood sugar control, reduces metabolic flexibility, and allows more fat to accumulate, especially around the abdomen. And that extra fat can drive even more inflammatory signaling. Suddenly, you are stuck in a loop. This is where many people lose years of healthy function without realizing it. They are not collapsing overnight. They are slowly giving ground, a little less balance, a little less speed, a little less confidence. Then one day, something ordinary becomes strangely difficult, and that is the moment they realize the problem was building long before it became obvious. Now wait for this, because it changes how you think about aging. Some of the simplest physical measures in older adults are strongly linked to survival. Walking speed is one of them. In large studies of adults over 65, people who walk faster tend to live longer. Grip strength tells a similar story. Lower grip strength often tracks with higher risk of poor outcomes and mortality. That does not mean a slower walker is doomed. It does not mean a firm handshake guarantees a long life. But it does mean your body leaves clues, and these clues can show up years before a crisis. That is why this topic matters so much. You are not just measuring muscle. You are measuring reserve, resilience, and the body's ability to handle the unexpected. Let me give you a real-life contrast. Imagine two people, both 72. Both have similar blood pressure, similar weight, and similar annual checkups. But one can rise from a chair easily, carry groceries without strain, and walk briskly across a parking lot. The other moves carefully, pauses before stairs, and avoids lifting anything challenging. On paper, they may seem similar. In real life, they are not aging the same way. And here comes the mini climax. The person with more muscle reserve usually has more protection during illness, after surgery, during periods of inactivity, and after small injuries. That reserve can mean the difference between a brief setback and a downward spiral. It can mean staying independent instead of needing help. It can mean recovering instead of unraveling. So let me ask you something. Have you noticed that your body negotiates with you now before certain movements? Do you hesitate before getting up from the floor? Do you use furniture to steady yourself more than you used to? If your answer is yes, do not ignore that. The truth is, muscle loss often announces itself through subtle compromises long before a doctor gives it a name. And here is another fact that should get your attention. Muscle loss after 60 is not only associated with weakness, it is linked to falls, fractures, disability, hospitalization, and loss of independence. That is why this is so much bigger than appearance. A weaker body is often a more fragile body, and fragility is where ordinary life can suddenly become dangerous. A stumble that once would have been nothing becomes a broken wrist. A hospital stay that lasts a few days becomes a month of lost strength because bed rest rapidly accelerates muscle decline. A small illness turns into a major setback because the body no longer has enough physical reserve to absorb the stress. You will not believe how often that chain reaction begins with muscle that was quietly fading for years. Remember when I mentioned hidden clues? Here are 3 of the most important ones. Number 1, chair rise strength. If getting out of a chair without using your hands has become difficult, your lower body may be telling you something important. Number 2, walking pace. Number 3, near falls, or catching yourself awkwardly. Those moments matter more than people think. Let's talk about the first one. Rising from a chair sounds simple, but it requires leg strength, coordination, trunk stability, and confidence. It is one of the most practical movement tests of daily life. If that motion feels slow, shaky, or unusually hard, it does not automatically mean something serious is wrong, but it does mean you should pay attention. Now the second clue, walking speed. A slower walk is not just a slower walk. It may reflect reduced leg power, poorer balance, less cardiovascular reserve, weaker nerves sending signals to muscles, and less confidence in movement. That is why walking speed can be so revealing. It compresses several important systems into one everyday behavior. And here is the third clue, the one many people laugh off. Near falls. Maybe you tripped but caught yourself on the counter. Maybe you stumbled on a curb and recovered at the last second. Many people say, I didn't fall, so I'm fine. But here is the shocking part. Near falls can be early warnings that your reaction speed, balance, and power are changing. Now let's shift to the hopeful side of this, because there is very good news here. This is not just a warning story, it is an action story. One of the most effective tools we have against age-related muscle loss is resistance training. Not just being busy, not just walking more, not just stretching. Intentional strength work that challenges the muscles enough to tell the body, keep this tissue. And no, you do not need to become a bodybuilder. You do not need to live in the gym, but you do need enough challenge to create adaptation. That is the part many people miss. They move, but they never ask the muscle to do anything difficult enough to justify staying strong. The body is incredibly efficient. If you do not demand capacity, it will not preserve it. So here are the 5 mistakes that quietly speed up muscle loss after 60. Mistake number 1, relying on walking alone. Walking is excellent for your heart, mood, circulation, and daily function. Keep doing it. But walking by itself usually does not provide enough resistance to preserve or rebuild the strength and power that protect you from frailty. Mistake number 2, eating too little protein early in the day. Many older adults have toast or cereal for breakfast, something light for lunch, and then most of their protein at dinner. But muscle repair works better when protein is spread through the day. If your body gets repeated high-quality signals, it has more chances to support muscle protein synthesis, the rebuilding process. Mistake number 3, training too gently. This one surprises people. They think any movement is enough. Some movement is always better than none, but muscle responds to challenge. If you finish every exercise feeling like you could easily do 10 more repetitions, the signal may be too weak. Safe effort matters. Progressive overload matters. The body must feel a reason to adapt. Mistake number 4, sitting too much after illness, travel, stress, or retirement. Here is the truth most people do not realize. Muscle loss accelerates fast during inactivity. A few days in bed can start a meaningful decline, especially in older adults. That is why recovery after illness matters so much. The longer you wait to rebuild movement, the more ground you may lose. Mistake number 5, ignoring power and balance. Remember when I mentioned fast twitch fibers? These are the fibers that help you react quickly. Strength is the ability to produce force. Power is the ability to produce force quickly. When you slip, trip, or misstep, power is often what saves you. If you only train slowly and never practice balance, you may still be vulnerable. So what should you do instead? Let me give you 3 secrets that can change the trajectory. Secret number 1, train the movement patterns that protect independence. Sit to stands, step-ups, hip hinges, rows, presses, carries, and calf raises. These are not glamorous, but they are powerful because they translate directly to daily life. Aim for 2 to 3 strength sessions per week if your health allows. Use bands, dumbbells, machines, or body weight. Work the major muscle groups, especially the hips, thighs, glutes, back, and core. A good rule is to perform controlled repetitions until the last few feel challenging but still safe. That is where adaptation begins. That is where useful muscle is built. Secret number 2, prioritize protein strategically. Many healthy older adults do well with roughly 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, though needs can be higher in some people and lower in others depending on health conditions. The bigger point is consistency. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, fish, chicken, beans, lentils, tofu, and dairy can all help. And here is the wait for it moment in nutrition. It is not only how much protein you eat, it is when and how you pair it. Protein works better when the muscle has a reason to use it, which is why eating protein around your strength training days can be so valuable. Think of exercise as ringing the doorbell and protein as delivering the building materials. Secret number 3, train balance and safe speed. That may mean standing on one leg near a counter, practicing brisk chair rises, controlled step-ups, heel-to-toe walking, or guided power-focused movements with supervision. The goal is not to turn you into an athlete. The goal is to preserve reaction capacity, confidence, and the ability to catch yourself when life moves fast. But here is the deeper truth, and this may be the most important part of the entire video. Longevity after 60 is not just about avoiding disease, it is also about preserving capacity. Can your body still rise, carry, climb, stabilize, and recover when life gets physically demanding? Can it handle a stressful week, a mild illness, or a missed step without collapsing into decline? That is why I keep coming back to reserve. Reserve is the hidden wealth of the body. It is what allows you to weather challenges without immediately becoming fragile. A person with reserve can lose a little and still function. A person without reserve may look fine on a calm day, but unravel quickly when something goes wrong. You won't believe how many health outcomes come down to that invisible margin. Let me tell you one more story. A man in his 70s spends 5 days in the hospital for pneumonia. Before that, he was doing okay, but already avoiding stairs and struggling with chair rises. After discharge, he notices his legs feel shockingly weak. That is not his imagination. Hospitalization, bed rest, inflammation, reduced appetite, and inactivity can strip muscle fast. What looked like sudden aging was often low reserve, exposed by stress. This is why the muscle loss starting at 60 can predict so much. It is not because muscle is magical. It is because muscle sits at the crossroads of movement, metabolism, balance, recovery, and independence. When it weakens, multiple systems become less resilient at the same time. And when those systems lose resilience together, the body becomes easier to knock off course. Now, an important note before anyone misunderstands me. Not every person over 60 needs the same plan. If you have significant kidney disease, severe osteoporosis, recent surgery, unstable heart symptoms, major joint pain, or diabetes medications that can affect blood sugar during exercise, you need individualized guidance. Food and exercise are powerful, but they are support tools, not replacements for proper medical care. Still, for a very large number of adults over 60, the direction is clear. Train strength, eat enough protein, practice balance, protect your legs, challenge your muscles safely. Do not wait for a fall, a fracture, or a hospital stay to prove that you needed more reserve than you had. That is the mistake too many people make, and by then, rebuilding is harder. So let me bring this home. The muscle loss that matters most after 60 is not always the kind you notice in the mirror. It is the kind that steals speed before it steals size, steals confidence before it steals independence, and steals reserve before it steals years. But here is the good news. It is one of the most modifiable parts of aging when you act early and act consistently. If this message hit home, I want you to do one thing today. Test your body honestly. Stand up from a chair without using your hands if it is safe. Walk across a room at your normal pace and ask yourself whether you have slowed down. Notice whether stairs, bags, or balance feel different than they did 2 years ago. The truth is, awareness is where prevention begins. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you noticed weaker legs, slower walking, or more difficulty getting out of a chair? Which of the 5 mistakes do you think catches most people after 60? Tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it before a small warning becomes a big consequence. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.